What is up, guys? Welcome back. We got another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show for you tonight. It is Friday evening. Happy August 1st over here. We're going to hang out for a little bit and just share my favorite picks. A lot of people call these, they're my guys, they're whatever. It's August 1st. I'm sure some of these could potentially change, but these are the guys that I'm finding myself liking a lot right now, and I'm trying to go out of my way to get them on my team. I think the structures, I'm going to go, each position, I'm going to kind of go 3 players, maybe 4 players from each position. And I'll kind of do like a high end drafted player, a middle, and then like a sleeper, someone in the bottom tier. So we'll kind of do it that way. And then because it's August 1st, I just want to shout out, hey, fantasyfellowship.com, go check it out. We just updated the redraft rankings, the projections. I got dynasty rankings updated today as well. So a lot of new things to look at over there. And we're going to continue to, fill out all the good stuff there throughout August. But let's start with the quarterback position. I'm not going to come on here and say Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Burrow. I'm not going to say those guys are my guys. I think they're all really, really good picks. I think they're all great. They're all going to be guys that you want on your teams this year. But for me, I think that there's more of a challenge in finding those guys that are being drafted outside of the top 5 that could crash the top 5. So when I'm looking at some of my favorite picks, Allen, Lamar, Hurts, Jaden, and Joe Burrow, those guys they're all kind of my favorite picks when they fall to me. But outside of those guys, I'm looking at, Dak Prescott, one of my favorite quarterbacks for a middle range quarterback guy. I find myself liking Justin Fields. We had the little toe foot injury scare, and he seems to be fine. I think he's going to be someone that can step up and be a middle QB1 for us. But Dak Prescott's probably the one guy that I'm going to have ranked 7th or 8th in my QB rankings. I don't think the Cowboys are going to be able to run the ball as much as they think that they will be able to. You have CeeDee Lamb, you have George Pickens, you have Jake Ferguson, a couple other guys there that I think that they trust. And Micah Parsons, that was kind of a news blast today too. So he might not be out there week 1. So I think it's going to be a very, very heavy passing game for Dak Prescott. I guess if I count Dak Prescott as my middle QB for these favorites, I will pick one from the top 5. Josh Allen, Lamar, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, and Joe Burrow. Give me Lamar every time. Give me Lamar Jackson. I think he got snubbed last year on the MVP over Josh Allen. I don't think Lamar deserved the MVP in 2023, so it does kind of balance out. But I'll go Lamar as my top-end guy. If I want a top 5 quarterback, I want Lamar Jackson. Middle quarterback, I'm going to go with Dak Prescott. And then we got so many late quarterbacks that I like, and this is kind of shaping up to be my draft strategy for 2025, is I like to wait. I could have included Justin Herbert. I think Justin Herbert and Dak Prescott, those are both guys that I'm very comfortable going into my season with and saying, we're just going to see what happens. I think they both are going to be fantastic picks. Justin Fields, another one of those middle guys. But if I'm going late and we're talking like QBs outside of the top 12, give me Drake May, give me Jordan Love. I think those two, one of those guys, if not both of those guys, will crash the top 12 this year. I think with Drake May, you're getting an insane amount of rushing upside. And then I just think the additions that they made, not a lot, but bringing in Diggs, Travion, you also got another year of Demario Douglas being healthy, just younger receivers getting healthy there. Kyle Williams, you have the tight ends. I think there's enough there for Drake May to throw the ball to and still have that nice rushing floor. And then with Jordan Love, man, we were all drafting him pretty high last year. And what's changed? We know we have a really good run game with Josh Jacobs, the offensive line above average. Drafting a wide receiver like Matthew Golden is going to make them a little bit more interesting. So I think healthy Love, good running game, good defense. It could be a good season. So we'll go Lamar, Dak Fields, and then at the bottom there, we'll go Love and Drake May. Good evening to Harris, by the way. Hope you're doing well, my man. We're going to look at some running backs real quick here. And I'm just kind of looking at the ADP over on Fantasy Pros. I'm not going to come in here and tell you guys for my high-end running back. I love Bijan. I love Jahmyr Gibbs. Those are my two guys, but I'm not going to pound the table for them. Barkley, McCaffrey, Achane, they all have injury concerns. I think Genty's a good pick, but I'm not going to pick him. I'm kind of looking at this tier of Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, Josh Jacobs, and Jonathan Taylor. I kind of like that tier. And with the Cincinnati Bengals letting Zach Moss walk, they don't really have a lot of depth behind him. They brought in Samaje Perine, which is interesting. I'm not sure if I'm quite ready to say Chase Brown's like my guy, but he's really close. I think he's a top 10 back. I'm not going to pick him for my top tier guy, but like we're really, really close, guys. I think it's Bucky Irving. If I had to pick a top 10 back as my favorite pick right now, it probably is Bucky. I just think the absence of potentially Chris Godwin, Rachaad White, just another year behind in the offense here. I think it all kind of points to Bucky Irving being the guy. And I think, where he can get him, he's going like RB 9-10 off the board. And he was definitely a fringe top 5 running back last year I expect him just to get better. A normal offseason, a full season of being the starting guy. I think Bucky Irving is one of my favorite locks. And I feel pretty safe with Bucky Irving too. I think he is the clear cut guy. A lot of PPR potential, touchdowns are there. I'm not really nervous about Rachaad White. They didn't bring anybody else in. And I just think the absence of Chris Godwin early, maybe we're leaning on the running game a little bit more. So we'll go with Bucky Irving as my top end guy. So this might be cheating, so I'll give you guys 2 names here. But Omarion Hampton, Fantasy Pros has him ranked RB 17. That's my guy. Like I want him. Like he's a top 10, top 12 running back this year. So I will shout out some praise from Omarion Hampton, but I'm not going to pick him. For my middle guy, I'm going to go with David Montgomery. Nobody is really excited about David Montgomery, but every time you need a running back too, and it's 6th, 7th round, I'm welcoming David Montgomery to my team. I think you got a really good chance at 1,000 yards rushing, for sure over 1,000 yards with the receiving output. He did look good as a receiving back last year, and then a really good chance at double-digit touchdowns. He's probably one of the safest running backs that you can pick. People discounting him for some reason. I don't quite get it. 7th round, I can get a running back too and just let him go. It's David Montgomery for me. Lions are going to continue to win 12, 13 games this year, guys. And I think David Montgomery is going to continue to be a big part of that offense. So he's one of the safest running back picks for me. So I guess that middle tier for me, it's also a little bit of James Conner. I think James Conner's a guy very similar to Montgomery. I see him getting upwards of double-digit touchdowns and well over 1,000 yards. So Montgomery would be the middle guy. A little bit of Conner, a little bit of Omarion Hampton in there. And then if we're going late, there's a lot of guys that I like late. We're talking like outside of the top 30 for some sleepers here. If you've watched my stuff, you guys know I love Jaylen Warren. We like Ramondre Stevenson this year, who I think is going to be a factor, even if Travion looks good. I'm kind of nervous about Travion Henderson because I just don't know if he's going to get enough volume as a rusher to be what we want. But you're basically buying just a glorified receiving back, which in the past we've seen a lot of value with those guys. So I don't know if I quite see a top 5, top 10 RB at any point. If Ramondre Stevenson does leave, they might use another guy. But I keep coming back to Ramondre being a bit of a sleeper, but I'm not going to pick him. I'm going to pick Jordan Mason as my guy he's just one of my favorite guys to put on my bench. I think there's a very legit chance that he's got every week value in our starting lineups as your RB2 or your flex, especially because the Vikings, they play good defense. They play great defense. And they got basically a rookie quarterback. You have 2 really good backs, Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. You have good receivers, good tight end. It's going to be a functional offense, even if JJ McCarthy is not, even if he's just an average QB in his first season. They're going to rely heavily on this run game, and they have enough playmakers to at least make defenses, not load the box and stop the run game completely. So Jordan Mason, he's been lining up with the ones. Aaron Jones is up there in age. We saw Jordan Mason. He was a must start the first month of football last year, and they kind of just went away from him. But I'm excited about Mason. I think you can put him on your bench as your RB3 or 4, and sometimes a lot later in drafts. So he's one of the guys that just falls to the wayside. And then one more running back for you, Tank Bigsby. I think Tank Bigsby is one of the safest picks that late. And honestly, I just don't understand. The Tank Bigsby profile is, he's a good runner, should lead the team in carries, won't get a lot of receiving work, but he's going to get all the goal line, short yardage, and bulk of the carries. And people are buying Caleb Johnson, the same profile, much higher cost. So I love Tank Bigsby. Let's talk about some receivers real quick. Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb are the top 2 for me. That next tier is JJ, Puka. If I had to choose one guy in that fringe top 10 range to really pound the table for, I love Brian Thomas Jr., But I think I'm coming around to Nico Collins being one of the best picks in the second round of our fantasy drafts. And yeah, you could even take him in the end of the first round, but I am not excited about every time I look at the Texans, man, I'm looking at the offensive line. I'm looking at Nick Chubb. I'm looking at Joe Mixon. I'm looking at Dameon Pierce, Woody Marks, who's a good pass catching back. I don't think the Texans are going to be able to run the ball enough and to be good. So that keeps coming back to Nico Collins just simply being the offense. I think he's going to be set up for a dominant season. If he stays healthy, man, he's got a legit chance at, 1,400 yards, 10, 12 touchdowns, something like that. He is the guy that I'm looking for. I might be even willing to move him over Brian Thomas, Drake London, Amon-Ra, maybe even over Malik Neighbors. So Nico would be that high-end guy that I'm pretty excited about. I'll give an honorable mention to Ladd McConkey, who's going to be just another 100-yard catch player in the Chargers offense. I think those two guys, fantastic. Like if you can get Ladd McConkey round 3 in your drafts, I think you're laughing to the bank on that one. But let's pick some middle guys here. And there's a lot that I like in this tier. I think we'll talk about George Pickens. If I don't get CeeDee Lamb on my team, I want to try and get George Pickens. So that's one thing. If I don't have options to get Lamb in the first round, I want to get a piece of that Dallas Cowboys passing offense, because you can see with Michael Parsons, like this defense could be really bad. They can't run the ball. They might be the Cincinnati of the NFC this year, where they just have to throw the ball 40 times a game, and you got the little Jamar Chase, T. Higgins action with these guys. I think George Pickens is set up for a career year. I want to find a way. If I don't get CeeDee Lamb, I'm going after George Pickens on my teams. Another guy I like in the middle round would be Jalen Waddle. I think this is the year we see him kind of overtake Tyreek Hill. Ted McMillan, if you want to pull a receiver, I think he's a really fun, exciting pick that could be 11 to 1,200 yards. And his ADP, very, very low. I think he's an excellent choice. One more middle. He's ranked very low on Fantasy Pros. He's wide receiver 49. He does not belong in the sleeper tier. He belongs in that Jerry Jeudy, Travis Hunter, Rome Odunze tier, round wide receiver 30. Emeka Egbuka. If you're listening to this, it's August 1st. We don't know if Chris Godwin's going to play week 1. I'm banking all my money is on him being on PUP list to start the year. This does not sound like a very common ankle injury recovery for him. I think Emeka Egbuka was taken with intent in the first round. He might just lead the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in receptions this year. He is the one guy out of this probably whole video I just want you to take away and say, hey, please reach. We could be 1 week into the year, and your reach on Emeka Egbuka on your draft day could look absolutely genius. So we're looking at a guy that could just come out and catch 70 to 80 passes. Wide receiver 49 that I'm looking at on Fantasy Pros is just too low. So he's in the middle tier of receivers. He's not a sleeper. He is officially a guy that I want on my team. I guess a sleeper receiver that I do like, I could shout out some guys, whether it is a lot of rookies. I like Trey Harris down there. I like Matthew Golden. These are guys that typically, especially late in the draft, adding these young rookies and just letting them sit on your bench to start the year, and then, eventually they can move up. That's usually a good move. So, that's your Luther Burden, your Trey Harris, your Jaden Higgins, even if you're nervous about Nico Collins, like I see in there, a couple other guys. And then I guess my 2 deep sleepers at receiver, Demario Douglas, who I think has a legit chance to lead the Patriots in receptions this year. PPR, you want Demario on your team, on your bench. And then I'll go Josh Palmer, who I think has a chance to maybe lead the Bills in receiving yards. We're going to finish up here with the tight end factory. I'm usually not a guy that loves spending a second round pick on a tight end, but I think Brock Bowers is fine. If that's what you want to do, like, you have to do it. The second round pick, it's just a little steep for me. You could get Trey McBride in round 3, which is fine. But if I'm going to choose a high-end tight end, I want George Kittle. Everything's kind of stemming towards George Kittle being just back in the mix for another career season. Yes, Christian McCaffrey's back, but you lose Debo. Ayuk's probably not going to be ready for the start of the year, and then he's just probably not going to be 100% himself at any point of the season. You have Jawan Jennings, who's dealing with an injury. I think it's a calf. He's also demanded a trade or a new contract. And then Ricky Pearsall, who's got a little bit of a hamstring thing going on right now. They might not have a single healthy receiver between Ayuk, Jawan, and Pearsall right now. So I think George Kittle's primed for a really, really big year. He's the guy that I'm looking for if I want a tight end early. If I want the middle tight end, you guys probably could guess who I'm going to say. It's Mark Andrews. The Isaiah Likely injury just has put fuel onto this one. And we're looking at Mark Andrews, maybe a kind of like a vintage Mark Andrews season where now he might be up to 75 plus receptions this year. And he only needed about 60 to 70 to make a top 5 splash at tight end because he's going to catch touchdowns. But if Isaiah Likely's not on the field week 1, maybe even the pup list, we don't know. Mark Andrews could just be off to a hot start to begin the year. So I'm all in on Mark Andrews. He's tight end 9 here as I'm looking at it on Fantasy Pros, which, I'm probably taking Mark Andrews over Njoku, over Kelsey. I think he belongs in the same tier as Sam Laporta. So I'll take the 2-3 round discount on Mark Andrews. Couple other middle guys there. If you don't get Mark Andrews, I think Jake Ferguson and Tucker Kraft are some of the guys that you're looking for there. And then if you want to run it all the way to empty on tight end this season, I think Tyler Warren for the Indianapolis Colts, and I get it. Don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be, but it's just usually a first-round talent like that. I'm willing to bet on it. The same thing can be said about Colston Loveland. I think I'm interested in one of those 2 tight ends if I can. And then I keep coming back to Kyle Pitts and Zach Ertz. I think if you wanted to wait for 0 tight end, you can go with Pitts and Ertz. You can go with Ertz and Warren. You can go Loveland. Any kind of grouping of those 4 guys and come out with a tandem, and you should feel pretty good about it. So waiting for tight ends has always been one of my favorite recipes, and we'll see how it goes. But again, good evening to Harris. I was just popping in to say hi and do a quick little video for the weekend. But Harris does not like Jordan Mason. I think you got to think about things a little bit more in the Vikings offense. Aaron Jones up there in age. This team wants to run the football. When you do the numbers and you look around, there's going to be a lot of carries available for a Jordan Mason. Just last year, Aaron Jones ran the ball 255 times, and the Vikings gave the duo of Cam Akers and Ty Chandler about 115 carries or so, almost 120 carries. So just banking in about 130, 140 carries for Jordan Mason alone. And then if he does get that, or when Aaron Jones does eventually get hurt, it's just something to think about. I think a lot of people are looking at other, if you're into Zach Charbonnet or some of these other handcuff running backs like Trey Benson, you should be in on Jordan Mason, who actually has a weekly floor. He's going to get, 6 to 7 touches in a game, I feel like, and he's actually got a chance to be the goal line back. So I would just recommend thinking a little bit more about Jordan Mason Harris. Nico scares me with his injury history. I do get it. But we can't play scared, man. Sometimes I think about what a ceiling season looks like for Nico Collins, and I think about what the recipe would call to get a breakout season. It's the lack of a running game and a defense that's good, but it kind of stems back to this not really having a running game and this offensive line and things like that. And if Nico does stay healthy, man, we know he puts out some of the best numbers in terms of the advanced metrics. And I don't know, I'm pretty excited about what Nico could do. And I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised if we did see a career year, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm willing to take a swing and a miss on that. Ibuka starting to line up. I like Tucker Kraft, but I just want to say, man, I'm nervous about drafting Packers receivers and tight ends. I'm seeing Luke Musgrave catch a lot of passes from Jordan Love with the 1-2. The Packers are going to roll out more 2 tight end sets this year. I think they're going to roll out a lot of 2 and 3 wide receiver sets this year. I like Tucker Kraft. The bet on Kraft would be that he runs hot on touchdowns. Now they're saying that they want to use him a lot more and find more ways to get him involved and more consistent. So I do like the price for Kraft, but I'm a little bit nervous about there's just too many mouths to feed for the Packers passing offense. Yep. Not in the Pickens or Williams or Worthy. Would that be Jameson Williams? Because if it is, I'm all the way in on Jameson Williams. I think just the things that I've been hearing out of camp sound really good. And if we're expanding his route tree, he was a 1,000-yard receiver last year, 7 touchdowns. He even ran the ball a little bit. I think he's a really fun, high upside wide receiver 3. And if you're not in on these kind of guys, Mr. Magic, I get it because like they're so volatile week to week, right? Like you don't know what they're going to get. But these are the kind of players that I like to pair with, your more consistent guys. Whether you want to draft, if you wanted to draft, Amon Ra, who's just as steady as they come, and then just say I'm going to take my George Pickens, and these guys can, basically you kind of view them as one group. Where you're going to get enough points out of the two of them, and then that week where Pickens or whoever does hit, it kind of helps. So that's one way that I like to combat really extremely volatile players. I wouldn't recommend rolling out with a lineup of, worthy. Like if you put all three of these guys on a team together, I'm not excited about that just because they all kind of have that same weekly upside. Did you see his catch? I think it was last night. He had a nice one-handed catch, and it does sound. I didn't even talk about my one quarterback, Anthony Richardson, who I think is the sleeper of sleeper quarterbacks, especially if you play super flex and you're not drafting Anthony Richardson. I think you're making a mistake. I do like Calvin Ridley. I am a little bit nervous though. You do have like a true rookie play caller. You have a suspect defense, a suspect off. It's not a great situation. I did see Ridley miss some time, but I think he's going to be fine. And he's really the only game in town. So I do think Ridley's a good pick, but he's kind of like Ridley's kind of in the same mold as all these guys where, he's going to have games where he goes 2 for 32. And then, his big games are going to be 4 for 112 and a touchdown, something like that. So he's kind of in the same boat as those guys to me. And I don't really know if I have a preference. Yeah, I think the injury stuff, there's certain things that do matter. Like a guy like James Conner, Aaron Jones, I'm banking on those guys, and my projections reflect this, but you have to bank on some little bit of injury with almost every player. When I do my projections, I'm projecting, 15 to 16 games for most quarterbacks. A guy like Anthony Richardson, I'm going to project 12 games. Justin Fields, I'll probably take off a couple more. Running backs like James Conner, Aaron Jones, some of those other, just those more veteran guys that we kind of have a history on. I am going to bake in a little bit of that. But the receivers, man, I like to look at the upside of a guy like Nico Collins and not really worry too much that if he does miss 2 or 3 games, I think I'm still going to get what I paid for, basically, just with that ceiling. I think Trey Benson's one of the worst picks on the board. And I'm finally making that stand this week because I think even if James Conner gets hurt, I don't think Trey Benson's going to be a must-start fantasy back. I think they're going to mix in other running backs to catch the ball. I'm a little bit nervous about just wasting another year with Trey Benson. Oh my goodness. I was just talking to my friend about this. I think it was yesterday. I'm like, why hasn't Keenan Allen signed with the Chargers or the 49ers yet? So hopefully we get some news on that soon. It does like taking Christian McCaffrey round 1. Like, do we want to, commit to that? But that's kind of the move that could, if Christian McCaffrey is good to go. And all the reports that I read this morning, man, it sounds like he's looking explosive and he might have even gained a step. That's, you do get rewarded for those risks, but you do have to factor them in. And Keenan Allen, we'll see what happens. It's always something with some of these guys, but that's going to do it. I just wanted to pop in, say hello, and share with you guys some of the things that I'm thinking of. And again, it's August 1st. I'm probably going to do one more video like this after maybe the second or third preseason week. But I want to thank you for hanging out. Happy Friday. Enjoy the weekend, guys. Stay safe. And we'll see you soon. Peace. Got me feeling icy.